Hey guys, West Coast Taco here, and welcome to the channel. If this is your first time watching one of my videos, or first time kind of checking out the channel in general, welcome. I would highly recommend for you guys that are looking into some of the more difficult issues to troubleshoot in regards to forums and other videos that kind of have conflicting opinions on what can and can't work. I hope my channel provides you guys with some good direction, some good insight. I'm just a regular guy here that owns a Tacoma, and I'm doing mods on it and doing things that I want to do to my truck, and I'm learning along the way. So I'm not a mechanic or some super fancy snazzy car guru, just a normal guy. And I hope some of the stuff that you guys have seen is helping you guys, and I hope it's bringing some insight into your thoughts and what you're trying to do or think about doing with your truck. So today, guys, I'm entering a frustration that a lot of you guys have, experienced. There's a lot of you guys that have gone before me in this endeavor, and for you guys that are seeing these parts on the hood of my truck, you know exactly what I'm dealing with. So to kind of backtrack a little bit, what kind of caused me to start this channel was I wanted to do the TRD lift kit on my double cab lawn bed Tacoma. I wasn't finding a ton of information about people doing that with their double cab lawn beds, just because Toyota claims that it's not compatible with the lawn beds, and it also claims that it's a dealer installed option only, and was able to bust both those myths. And the lift kit's doing great on the truck, and I was able to order the lift kit from a Toyota dealership. They mailed it to my house. I took it to an off-road shop, had it installed. If you're curious to see how that all went and the way the timeline worked and the story behind it, would recommend going to my channel. I did about 5 or 6 videos just kind of reviewing and focusing really on that process with the lift kit. So today I received my parts for my needle bearing, that infamous needle bearing that we all tend to love so much. And so I ordered my new clamshell bushing from East Coast Gear Supply with the axle seal, as you can see. And what I will do is once the needle bearing is removed, I will keep that to show a comparison in regards to how this inside of the cylinder looks on this one compared to the needle bearing that comes stock on the Tacoma. And my truck's only got 25,000 miles on it, so I probably didn't really need to do the axle seal, but it's $20 extra. This part was $60, this part was like $22. And I mean, I would rather just have the seal replaced while this axle's opened up and have a new seal put on, then put the old seal on, and then it start leaking and have to do the whole process over again. So I've learned quickly in life that sometimes it's better just to bite the bullet, spend a little extra money to do the full replacement than to try to cut corners and potentially have some issues. So I'd rather just do that than take the risk. So long story short, I think for me, the way I've felt about this is I've had the lift kit on my truck for about 2.5 months now, give or take, maybe a little less than that. But basically, I've had 0 issues, and I don't think by any means that this TRD lift kit is the culprit for the needle bearing. And when I say that, I mean that if I went with just a standard Bilstein 5100 or a Keen setup or Fox or whatever, I think the same issue would be occurring regardless. Because when I've read and from what I've seen on forums and on YouTube and just other types of internet browsing, even if you lift your Tacoma by like 1 inch, you immediately start to put a I wouldn't say a tremendous amount, but a significant amount of more stress on that bearing that Tacoma puts in their trucks, or Toyota puts inside of their Tacomas straight out of the factory. And for me, guys, it's like, here's my frustration. If Toyota did not make a lift kit for the Tacoma at all, and people were putting on aftermarket lift kits and having this issue, I would get it. It's like, okay, hey, well, you changed the Tacoma the way it wasn't intended to technically be set up. So yes, it's probably a good idea to replace that bushing since you are putting an aftermarket part on your truck. But here's where I come in and kind of have to argue with that a little bit, is that this TRD lift kit is for the Tacoma. And unless, you know, for some reason, which I highly doubt, you know, Toyota's already aware that that needle bearing creates a lot of issues for owners when they lift their Tacomas. Like, you know, unless like I'm just completely, you know, oblivious and not aware, like I'm almost 100% sure Toyota's tracking on this issue. So my question for Toyota is why don't you guys install or provide a bushing like this with the TRD lift kit, just so that when, you know, someone like myself buys a lift kit or has a dealer install it, that's part of the kit, it's part of the package, it's part of what they do to the truck to ensure that you're not going to come back in, you know, maybe within a few days to have your needle bearing replaced with a different bushing. And for me, guys, I feel like Toyota just could have done a better part, a better job on their part by doing that. Now, to each their own, I get it. You know, Toyota's doing what they're doing. We're really close to the end of the 3rd gen being in production, and that 4th gen's getting ready to come out soon. But for me, guys, that's just kind of my little spiel on how I feel about it. If they know there's a problem, like, come on, guys. Like, some people I've seen on these forums, they've spent so much money to get these lift kits installed at the dealership. You know, the least I think Toyota could do is just make sure that the issues that they're being, you know, addressed with in regards to those needle bearings, it could be rectified and fixed so easily by just doing this while you're already installing the lift kit. But that's just my 2 cents. Maybe your opinion differs, guys. And this is not me, you know, slamming Toyota. I just don't really get it. I guess if I was an owner of a company and I was aware of a part that wasn't working after, you know, a mod or an accessory that you could purchase to kind of further increase the abilities of your truck, you know, if I was selling both of those items, the truck and that part, and claiming they were compatible, and I was aware of an issue with the needle bearing, I personally would think it would only be right to address that, do a quick fix, include this part with that kit, or something very similar to at least help people not have that issue when they lift their Tacomas with that TRD lift kit. So for all of you guys that have been dealing with the situation, I'm going to dive deeper into the issues I was having, the diagnosis process, and actually how I'm getting this fixed and who's fixing it for me. So stay tuned, guys. This is the first part of this video, and as I go through this little timeline, I hope this helps a lot of you guys that have been dealing with the frustrations of having vibrations, that droning noise, the rubbing. There's a lot of different types of issues people get with this. It's not just like one type of issue people have that is the diagnosis for this problem. But mine currently, guys, has been this vibration. I'll be driving around 35 to 40 miles an hour, and I'll feel like I'm hitting rumble strips. Kind of like you feel when you're on the freeway and you kind of veer too, you know, if you veer too far off on the shoulder, you get that rumbling feeling. That's what I get. And it's definitely not rumble strips when I'm driving. It's just on the city with stop and go traffic. So, yeah, it happened. It's happened twice so far. I'm pretty sure that's it. Regardless, just off of the feedback and the info I've seen, I think it'd be smart just to get this part replaced, just to reduce any chances of that needle bearing falling apart and getting into my axle and creating a much bigger problem. So stay tuned, guys. Like I said, this is the first part. I'm getting ready to take the truck over to the shop right now, and I'm going to walk you through the process and kind of let you know how it goes both before and after. So this is kind of more of the before and what's kind of starting this video. So stay tuned, guys. I'll be back. All right, guys, so I'm on the road here, and I'm headed off to the mechanic to get this fixed. We'll see if my truck makes any of those noises on the way there, so if I start to feel it or hear it, I'll let you know and kind of give you the best I can in regards to a heads up or a pinpoint. But yeah, guys, so like I was saying, a little frustration here. If this is an issue that Toyota knows about, you know, I wish they would just add it to the TRD lift kit. But it is what it is. And for you guys that are contemplating on whether you should do this or not while installing your lift kit, guys, just go ahead and get it done if I were you. Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of you guys that have never had an issue with it before, and you guys are still running stock, you know, stock needle bearing after your lift, and you guys have been running it for years, and there's just thankfully no issues, and that's awesome. I wish that was the case for me, but that's clearly not it. So yeah, I would just do it. Save yourself the hassle of having to take it back in, spend the extra money to get it done. So about to pull up here, so I will get back to you here shortly. All right, guys, so we are back, and as you can clearly see, the needle bearing is in rough shape, and it was failing. Like I mentioned, guys, it's disappointing that Toyota knows about this. At least from what I hear, they know about this. I'd be surprised if they didn't. And they just don't include a bushing in the TRD lift kit for Tacoma owners, so that when you have this kit installed at the dealer, or you buy the kit and have it installed somewhere else, that you can just have this bushing with that kit to alleviate you having to order one separately or do what I did and have to go back and have it installed later. So unfortunately for me, and I hope you guys are learning from my mistake, is I didn't really realize how common it was, I should say, for people to have issues with their needle bearing once they lifted their Tacoma. I'd seen a little bit on it, but I didn't do a lot of homework. I didn't do a lot of research, and I learned the hard way. So I hope you guys are learning from my mistake and you aren't having to learn from yours. But like they say, you live and you learn. So, now that this piece is out, my truck's driving great, the vibrations are gone. And before, the vibrations weren't happening every single time I was driving the truck, but it would happen randomly. And I knew that as time continued to pass and as I continued to drive, I was just taking a greater and greater chance of this thing, falling apart, getting destroyed, and then potentially going into my axle and causing a whole lot of problems. So when I started noticing the issue, I decided to park the truck and come up with a solution in regards to how I was going to go about getting this done. And this next bit of information I'm going to share with you guys, I hope is super helpful, especially for you guys that live in Southern California. And I'm sure there's not a ton of you that do. So I wish I had a better solution for all of you guys all over the country. But, there are great mechanics everywhere. It's not just here. But for you guys that live locally down here in San Diego County, I'm going to give you guys a reference, and I would highly recommend hitting him up in regards to just about anything you need for your Tacoma in regards to repairs or maintenance. I'm going to put his name and a link to his contact info in the description below. And his name is Jason, and holy smokes, the guy was phenomenal. I actually found his info on Tacoma World. He had really high reviews from the people that had work done by him. So I hit him up. He lives actually like 5 minutes away from me, so it just happened to be a coincidence that we were so close, which is great, because after meeting him, after him doing this repair, hearing his story, I'm not going to let anybody else touch this truck outside of him. He comes from a really cool background. He was a essentially a Toyota mechanic, but he was more of like a supervisor and had like a team of mechanics that he was in charge of. And then eventually decided to go, more private and more solo with his mechanical career. So he does everything pretty much out of his home garage, and he's got a great setup, and he's so knowledgeable and super humble, super polite, and has great rates on his labor and everything. And so I feel like for me, and I'm sure a lot of you guys, getting my truck on is never fun, but there's no better peace of mind than knowing that the person who's working on your truck is doing a great job and is providing you with a great service that you can rely on and count on. And they're not going to rip you off, and they're not going to do something to your truck that's going to cause damage. So his information's below and in the description, and highly recommend using him. I'm going to use him going forward. So big shout out to Jason. Jason, thanks for this and for the info and the knowledge, and looking forward to sending you my business when it comes to the maintenance and requirement needs for my truck. So going back a little bit, guys, so as I had mentioned earlier, when I was driving this truck, I started getting some vibrations. Almost immediately I had an idea of what it was, because I had read and seen a few things about it. So I started doing more research. It seemed like it was the culprit. And even if it wasn't the culprit, there was enough people that had some really bad stories and some bad experiences with this needle bearing, to the point where I was like, I'd rather just get this thing done now than roll dice and potentially cause a lot of damage to my axle. So I went on East Coast Gear Supply, was looking around. I was calling around different shops, trying to find people who would do this or had experience with it. In fact, I even called the people that installed my lift kit, Next Gen Off-Road. Great shop, highly recommend them as well. In regards to the lift kit and even this, they've just been super slammed, super busy. So there's gonna be a few weeks, and they're actually in the process of moving location. So they've got a lot on their plate. So I was like, well, let me see what else is going on around here. And I started Googling for, Toyota Tacoma mechanics, in Southern California, or at least in San Diego County. And Tacoma World had a post, and I clicked on that, and that's how I found Jason. So super glad I found him, super blessed, because it's really hard to find a good mechanic. I feel like I got really lucky by getting a hold of him, the way I did. And so best way to contact him, you can send him the information via email. I shot him a text message, and he got back to me within a couple hours, and I contacted him, I believe, on Tuesday. He said he could do it, and I ordered the part that night with the axle seal. It got to my house on Thursday, and then he was available and able to get me in on Friday because he had some canceled plans. So I was able to get my truck into him on Friday, and I think it took him about an hour and a half to do the entire exchange for the needle bearing to the clamshell bushing. And every piece that was kind of breaking or was having issues, he was able to get it. So he said that there's nothing to be concerned about, and that everything looked great. And this is just to kind of give you an idea of how savvy he is as a mechanic. For a lot of you guys that have seen videos on these bushings getting, replaced, or I should say having the needle bearing replaced with the bushings, when people take off that wheel and that tire, you start to see all that fluid start to kind of leak out from where they're pulling the bushing or the needle bearing. What he did with my Tacoma, which I thought was really smart, is he lifted it up and then he tilted it as it was lifted, like cockeyed it. And he does it all the time, he says. So he's like, if you don't know what you're doing, it's not recommended. I wouldn't, my recommendation to you guys would be, don't try this in your driveway. But he has the tools, he has the equipment, and he jacks up the truck and he puts it at an angle so that none of that fluid comes pouring out of the axle. So I thought that was really smart. I was really impressed by that. And he's done tons and tons of these. So if you guys are somewhat local here in San Diego County, and you guys are in need of getting that needle bearing replaced with the clamshell bushing, hit Jason up. He seems so knowledgeable, and I'm going to have him continue to do all the work and maintenance on my Tacoma going forward, because I think it's important when you find somebody that does a good job that you continue to support their business and you continue to give them out as referrals to people. And guys, that's the whole purpose of this channel. I'm not looking to make money on this channel. I'm not looking to do anything crazy. The whole goal of this channel is to give you guys an idea of what I'm doing, how I'm finding success through certain issues I'm having. When there's a hurdle that needs to be jumped over, what am I doing? It's important that we share our successes and our failures with one another so that we can, one, learn from each other's mistakes so we don't make the same mistakes, but then also, help each other when we have those moments of success, so that we can kind of help each other all move in that direction and have success with our Tacomas. So I hope today's video, guys, I know it wasn't super exciting. I know there wasn't a whole heck of a lot to talk about, but this is an issue that pretty much, it sounds like, most Tacoma owners cross sooner than later when it comes to their lift kit. And I'm not gonna just beat a dead horse, but I'm just gonna say it one more time. I would highly recommend, guys, go to eastcoastgearsupply.com, order that clamshell bushing, order that the axle seal, and just have the individual install it that's going to be installing your lift kit. It'll just make it so much simpler. But okay, guys, I'm going to leave you with that. If you guys have any questions at all, hit me up in the comments section. Be more than happy to help. Talk to you soon. See ya.